If you could turn your cameras on, unless you have something in your background that's inappropriate that we're not supposed to see, that would be great. Because I want to look at all, with the zombies out there, we can't do that anymore. So it makes me think, geez, I'm glad I'm not in the classroom. You guys are doing a super job learning how to do this. So what I'd like you to do is put your hands forward like this, and then just interlock them. Okay, now interlock your ankles. Now notice which thumb is on top, whether the left or the right. Now redo it. Do it the other way with both your ankles and your hands. Does it feel uncomfortable, a little weird? Okay, so when we're working with students, very often the things that we're going to be teaching them are going to be feeling a little off. They're going to feel not quite so intuitive. So as you know, if you see every problem as a nail, you only want to get a hammer. And that's why we call ours a toolkit, because you want to have ways to get a tape, to get a saw, to get screws, whatever you need. So ours is a toolkit and not a tool. So I'm going to read to you 3 brief questions. So since that time when Bonnie Halper and I first started it, we have developed our team, and our team now has grown beyond just the 2 of us into all of these people. Bonnie is our leader. Many of you probably know Ira. He's been doing trainings for a long time. We now are involved in a lot of different projects. We have 2 toolkits, which we'll talk to you about. We also have some curriculums developed for this time of zombies for remote learning as well. So we also have developed a youth advisory board, and they have become so involved that we now call it the Youth Action Board. These are students from all across the country, a very diverse group. They've been very active, testifying before legislatures, making videos, making PSAs, etc. And that was started by Marcia, who's now responsible for that particular group. So you may know Bonnie Halpern-Felsher. She is really becoming the voice of the anti-vaping movement. You've probably seen her on TV. If you've read any articles in the newspaper, she's very often the one quoted. She's our Dr. Fauci of vaping at this particular point. We also want to give a shout out to our funders. These are the people who have provided the money to make sure that you have these toolkits free and online. 2P, then the California Department of Education, and CVS, the pharmacy. If you'll remember, they were the first ones who actually eliminated tobacco products from their pharmacies. So we tend to support those. So Richard, this is our agenda for today. And Richard knows you've probably been trained to death on Zoom. You're probably better at it than even we are, but we want to give you a couple of very brief kinds of ideas of what we think is important to that. So Richard, go ahead.
Hi, everyone. So what I'm going to do is just give you an idea of what we'll be covering today. So we'll be focusing on one part of the toolkit curriculum. That's the vaping prevention course. And before we do that, we wanted to familiarize you with all the different parts of the toolkit. I just want to say we redid our website. So the layout is new if you haven't seen it yet. And we'll be showing you a little bit of what that looks like and what it has to offer. But before we do that, we wanted to play this video for you, and Stephen can probably give a little more context for this.
Well, I know now that you're all teaching remotely, you're having to deal with students who don't know what's really going on. I think all of you want to have this particular student in your group.
Verizon 5G is here with a coverage of 5.
You have to get the commercial, I'm sorry.
Can everyone hear me? But we'll try and at least discuss.
Guys, what happened? She left the meeting. Yeah, she left the meeting. I kicked her out the internet. Yeah. You guys see me?
All of you guys, I see that there's a little record sign at the top of the screen. So the teacher's recording this. She can watch us and see that we're not behaving.
Yeah, I know.
And the principal.
Yeah, we know.
That should be serious
I
trouble.
know, but I'm just like muting my mic because I don't want to talk.
So we should behave.
Yeah. Yeah, you're right. Yeah. My mom told me that. I'm eating gummies.
Because if the principal finds out that video of if we were being bad right now, she would see us being very bad and we would get in big trouble with our parents.
Well, we'll be toast. We'll be toast. We're just talking. Toast means, we're in trouble. I want toast.
Guys, she doesn't have our number, our phone.
And whoever said we'll be toast, whoever said that, I'll maybe have toast for breakfast tomorrow.
I said that. That sounds really good.
They don't.
That sounds funny.
They don't know our number.
I said that. With toast and eggs, that sounds really good with lettuce. Not eggs.
So if any of you are inspired to go out and get some toast right now, that's okay. You can do that. Richard?
Just a second. Okay, we're back.
So we want to give you a snapshot of what some of our different toolkits are. Richard, did you want to do the Zoom ideas first?
Oh, I'm not covering that in today's workshop.
Oh, okay. Okay, so we're gonna give you a snapshot of the different toolkits that we have in the different remote learnings. As Richard had said, we have just redone this. We started doing looking and talking to teachers, and what we wanted to do in the very beginning was to make so many different methods of accessing this material that we found out the more we put in, the more confusing it was rather than making it easier. So what we did is we redid that. So if you look at this homepage for us, you can see the about. I've already basically gone over that. Tells you about the history of the toolkit and who's doing it, et cetera. Then you have the curriculum decision makers. And if we click on that, you'll see that this is ways of us to access different kinds of programs within it. And then the take and teach, this gives you an opportunity to look up specific activities or specific PowerPoints or specific handouts that you want to do. And then our resource directory is the place where we call the parking lot, where we had a lot of articles, videos, handouts, etc., which we thought were really, really good. We just didn't know where to put them in the toolkit. So we thought, we'll let teachers decide where they would like to put them because they know their students better. They know what would work in their classroom, etc. So if you look down, you'll see that we have the vaping prevention self-paced course, and that's what we're going to spend time to do today. Going smoke-free in our Healthy Futures program. And the Healthy Futures program is a way of us looking at alternatives to suspensions, which we felt were really important. One of the things that we were asked to do was to develop a 5-session curriculum. And in our toolkit, as well as in the 5-session, we have interactive online free content. This is a way for you to access this. We have activities, we have crash courses, discussion guides, fact sheets, Kahoots, as I'm sure a lot of you are using, and PowerPoints. These are based on the whole idea of if you want to convey information very quickly to students in a PowerPoint, this is kind of the 101. So here's an example of some of the activities that we had in there. We tried to approach all different modalities of learning, from basic recall to clear through discussion to clear through hands-on kinds of activities. So all of these activities are in our toolkit, and those of you who are familiar with it can look at it, but all of you can explore this later as you go through the toolkit. This is just to give you an overview. In addition to that, we have an area which I really appreciate, because I didn't come to this with a lot of tobacco information. The crash courses allow you that traditional be a chapter ahead of the students kind of thing, where if you're asked to teach something that you're not feeling really solid about, this will give you an opportunity to read some short information that will give you some very important information for you. And at the bottom, there's a little squiggly that you can click, and that will give you more resources if you want to go into it even in more depth with that. So these are specifically designed for teachers to use.
And I just wanted to add that with the improvement in the website layout, what we did was include all the crash courses under the resource directory. So before they were sprinkled throughout the website, but now you can go to the resource directory and see all of them at the same time and click on the one that you want to look into.
We also have a lot of fact sheets, and these have been used extensively by teachers in a lot of different ways. Some teachers are just using them as handouts. Some are sending them home as information. Some are blowing them up and putting them up as posters in their classrooms. There's a lot of different ways to use this. These can be introductory materials for students to promote discussion. I'd like to make quick note of the black one in the center, which you see is in Spanish. So we now have Spanish in the 2 languages of Chinese available for our materials that would go home to parents and be used in the classroom as well.
And I also want to add that all of the fact sheets you're seeing here is a combination of fact sheets from the cannabis toolkit and the tobacco toolkit. And the same with the other slides before, the activities and the crash courses. It's a combination of the 2 toolkits. So we're giving you a little bit of everything.
So the PowerPoints, as I said, these are kind of the basic 101s. We have PowerPoints in every one of our different modules, every one of our different sections that we have, so that if you only have like one session to do with kids, this is a way of doing it. You can use it as introductory material. You can take out slides, put in slides, go in a different order, use them for a little bit, stop and have discussion. The whole idea of the toolkit was it to be a resource for you. So we want you to know your students. You know which slides are going to work, which slides aren't. And this is a very adaptable way for you to use the toolkit. You can do the toolkit because you're comfortable with it and you could just talk about the slides. If you're not as comfortable with a certain area, you can actually use the teacher talking points. This is actually a script to walk you through each of the slides. And then at the bottom of that are additional resources if you feel you need more information, or students want information, or they're doing research or work in a particular area. This can direct them as well. So we also have discussion guides, which are essential conversations. These are designed to be taken home to a trusted adult in the student's realm. So it might be a parent, but it might not be. It might be a coach, it might be a rabbi, it might be an uncle, it could be any trusted adult. And the idea is not to get to an answer. There's not the answer, there's the idea of opening up discussion so that you have lines of communication when it's really important. We also have the Kahoots. Could I see a show of hands? How many of you are using Kahoots in your classroom? Okay, good. So this is getting more and more popular. When I was in the classroom, I didn't have this. I would have loved this. This is right up my alley. On the right-hand side, you can see an example of a Kahoot. And this can be done on phones, can be done on computers, or it could be done paper pencil if you want it to be that way. On the right-hand side, you can see that there's a question, then there's an answer. And the 4 answers are color-coded and then geometrically shaped coded. So that helps the student. And at the bottom of that slide, you'll see that a girl's taking the test on her iPad. We wanted to shout out to a person in Half Moon Bay who used the Kahoot. And she started out having Friday Kahoot time at lunch. And when she first started, she was doing mostly the tobacco education kinds of Kahoots in the gymnasium. And then word got around and more people were there. They started doing trivia and sports and movies and everything. And by the end of the year, nearly the entire gym was full of kids. And they decided that this was a major opportunity for kids to get together who didn't know each other, start communicating and talking, and they felt it radically changed their culture. So I thought this was somebody who really took the basic idea of Kahoot and took it to a much farther area and really helped her school. They had much less violence going on, much less hate going on. It was really valuable for them. Our Healthy Futures curriculum, this was our alternative to suspension, which we felt was really critical. We didn't think you catch a kid vaping and you send them home so they can vape all day made a lot of sense. And we felt that we had kind of 2 different groups. We had a set of administrators who wanted their dashboard statistics to look good, that they weren't kicking out a lot of kids out of school. And you had teachers who were saying, you know, we're just kicking kids out. We're not really doing anything for them. So the Healthy Futures curriculum was developed as an alternative to that. So we have a 1-hour version, a 2-hour version, and a 4-hour version. We really think that it's best one-on-one with the 1 hour. So the 2 and the 4-hour version allow for a lot more reflection time for the student of what they're thinking about in terms of the activities that they've done. Richard, you want to add to that a little bit?
Yeah, a lot of what we've showed you with the activities and PowerPoints, as Stephen was mentioning. So we pulled together the best of the best and tailored it in a way so that you could talk to young people who are already using and inspire them to quit. And if they are interested in quitting, helping them create a quit plan. We have a really great resource in here in this curriculum called the Healthy Futures Handbook. It's a series of questions that are meant to motivate students to quit. And students can fill that out on their own while they're going through the curriculum, while they're going through the 1 hour, 2 hour, 4 hour. And we know with remote teaching and learning right now, it may not be realistic to teach a 4 hour online. So you may want to consider the 1 or 2 hour. But that's basically what the Healthy Futures curriculum has to offer. And we're happy to answer any other questions if you're curious about this.
So during this time of remote learning, this works really well. Richard's going to talk about the whole idea of the triangulum. You've probably heard about this, but we just want to clarify this for you, since most of you have written us into your 2P grants and allows you to do a number of different things at this point that we couldn't do before. Richard?
So what I wanted to do was talk about the triangulum, and Phil Gardner has done a few presentations on this before in previous conferences. But the whole idea is that e-cigarettes has really created this huge intersection for tobacco, our nicotine, and marijuana/cannabis. And what's great is that we have 2 toolkits that can address the triangulum. So we have our cannabis toolkit and our tobacco toolkit. So we know that CDE, the California Department of Education, gave all of you more of the green light to cover or use your time, if you have any time for supplemental teaching, to go over cannabis. And what's great is that we already have curriculum available for you to use. And I just wanted to address that if you're going to be talking about tobacco, it's really tricky to not cover cannabis or receive questions from students about cannabis. I had a great educator once describe it to me as it's almost like they're dating cannabis and tobacco. So when we have these conversations with young people, you can't help but talk about the 2 and address the health risks of cannabis and tobacco. So I just wanted to go over that with all of you real quick before moving forward. Also, if you're curious about national data, about 3 months into 2020, we collected some data from the National Youth Tobacco Survey, and I wanted to provide you with an overview of what that looks like. So yes, there are less young people who are using e-cigarettes. Less young people are reporting that they're using e-cigarettes. The only problem is there's an uptick in disposable e-cigarette devices, such as puff bars and other look-alike devices. So it so happens that Juul and some of the e-cigarettes we were hearing about last year and the year before are not as popular with young people. These disposable e-cigarettes with flavors are becoming more of a hit, and that's something that we need to be concerned about. Also, young people who are currently using e-cigarettes, 8 out of the 10, or actually more than 8 out of the 10, indicated that they're using flavors in those e-cigarettes. So the conversation around flavors is still relevant, and it's still an issue because these companies are using flavors to market to young people. But moving forward, we need to think about the data here is only 3 months in, right before the pandemic started. And we need to be looking at, is this data, or asking ourselves, is this data going to stay the same or is it going to change considering everything that's going on in our country? So I just wanted to give you that quick up to speed overview of what we know about young people using across the nation.
So I'm going to take you through the vaping prevention course. When we first started our toolkit, we didn't even have an e-cigarette section. That shows you how fast the industry is changing. Remember, a cigarette is an ineffective means of delivering nicotine. It's not very effective. It sits there and it burns, and a lot of burns off. You're not sucking on it all the time to get the nicotine. And now we have vaping, the 2.0 cigarette, which is more effective at delivering. So by the time we had finished our e-cigarette, we said, hey, we need to do something about this pod-based situation with Juul, et cetera. By the time we finished the Juul pod, we were now into the disposables with puff, et cetera. So you can imagine how quickly this area is changing. So my purpose here today is not to educate you about vaping. It's to give you an overview of what our particular course does with vaping. So you can see whether you want to go into it and really look at it and perhaps assign this to your students to use.
Stephen, before doing that, I just wanted to give everyone a 5-minute break. I know some of you have been on with the conference. So before we dive into more of the toolkit, if you wanted to use your 5-minute break to check out our website, we encourage you to do so. But if you also wanted to turn off your camera, walk around, stretch, please do that. But we'll start back up in 5 minutes, okay?
And maybe some of you not using your camera will put them on so I can see your happy, lovely faces.
A lot of the materials and assessments for Healthy Futures, there was a lot of inspiration with brief intervention and motivational interviewing. So with Ira Sacknoff being on our team, as Stephen was mentioning, he really helped us develop those materials. And I wish we had more time to go into the assessments, but we'll probably have workshops in the future and presentations on that available. So that way you can learn more about it.
Richard and Stephen, I went ahead and I responded to that question as well for the whole group. Since they're taking a break, I would hate for some of them to miss that. I just wanted to give you an update so that after that 5 minutes, you could address it, or I can put it in chat.
Okay.
The other question is a comprehensive toolkit. Do you have a comprehensive toolkit that marries cannabis and tobacco into one curriculum? Is that a yes?
That's a good idea, but the answer is no. We have two separate ones because when we started funding, 2P wouldn't allow us to do anything related to cannabis. So we had to do an entire different toolkit, and we had to get entirely different funding for that to do that. So you have to pick and choose the ones from the toolkit to do. Richard, you want to add more to that?
Well, I want to pause because when we start up again, everyone's on their break. So like Ken was saying, I don't want anyone to miss it.
Okay.
So we'll address those questions again, either when we start up or at the Q&A again. But
Thank you, Richard. Yep.
I have to hop I have to hop off real quick. I'll be back in like a minute. One of my teammates needs me for a training that's going on. We're doing a lot as a team, so I'll
Our
be right.
go-to tech guy.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay. Okay. And
What's up, Doc?
there were 2 questions that I reposted with responses, and there was one other question that can be a Q&A at the end. So I'm collecting them. So folks, if you do,
Oh, okay.
if you have any comments, put them in the chat, and I'll do my utmost to capture those, and then we can do a Q&A at the very end.
Okay, that sounds good. Richard, you with us now? No, you're on mute.
I wear a lot of different hats
Yes,
in our
you do.
lounge at Stanford, so I'm the tech guy. So one question we did receive, and I want to address this before we go into the vaping prevention course. We don't have a co-use toolkit. So what I mean by co-use is someone who's using cannabis and tobacco, but that will influence our future curriculum. So what I mean by that is when we're building out future courses like the one here, the vaping prevention course, it's something we want to include more of in our curriculum. So that way you're not having to use the tobacco toolkit and then jump on the cannabis toolkit. You can use something that addresses the co-use issue in one place rather than hopping all over with our toolkits. So that's something we are aware of and we want to incorporate more of into our future curriculum development.
Okay, so as I said, my job here today isn't to educate you about vaping, but to educate you about our vaping course. So you can think about it in terms of a combination of the 5-session sample curriculum that educators asked us to do, and the vaping prevention remote learning is a piece of that, and it all comes through our technology platform. So it's online exactly the same way as our toolkits. There's a button there that you can click on to get to that. And we'll talk about how students can use it and you can assign it. So this is the course modules. You'll see to the right-hand side that the course content is like the table of contents. And let's just open one up. Richard, can we do that here? Do I have to wait?
No, we can actually pull up the course real quick while we're talking about it.
Okay. So when we're talking about this, one of the things that you'll see in the self-paced, this looks exactly like all of our other pages. There's an introduction, there's a purpose, there's the downloads. And then if you go down to the course versions, there are basically 2 versions of this course you can do. I'm going to talk about the open and then Richard's going to talk about the linear. The open course allows you to just assign your students and let them go through it at their own pace, do whatever they want to do. And you're not going to get any kind of feedback about that. It's mostly an experience for them to have. Then you can talk about it in class if you want to. You can go through it with them as you want to, etc. Then the other way of going through the course is a linear approach. And Richard's going to talk about the linear approach.
Yeah, so the linear approach requires students to register for the course. So what we'll do is we have a self-registration form that they can fill out. And what it'll require them to do is go in order of the course. So instead of hopping around from course module to module, they have to go in order. And at the end of that, you can ask us to produce a spreadsheet for your students, just showing who completed the course, how much of the course they completed. And that's as much information that we can offer at the moment, but we're looking into providing other metrics and details. But the idea is that with the linear version, if you wanted your students to do it on their own and go through all of it and then receive that check mark from Stanford, we can provide you with that. But with the open version, if you didn't care about tracking them strictly, then you can assign some different parts of this and actually teach it while on Zoom. So that's something we're going to show you a little more of right now, of how to use this open version of the course.
So you see the course content there. And one of the things that I want to point out right away, where it says 5 lessons, these are not like what most teachers are thinking about of 45 to 55 minutes. These lessons are like 2 minutes, 3 minutes, etc. And then you'll notice that they have to assessments. The assessments are a way for them to check, am I learning something? And also we'll give them feedback in terms of what the right answers are. And we'll show you those. So Richard, let's go to all the chemicals from liquid aerosol. So you can expand that, and you'll notice that here's the 4 lessons. It all started with cigarettes, not so simple ingredients. Then there's a review and reflect. Then the next lesson, what comes out of e-cigarettes, the key takeaways, e-cigarette chemicals. So all of these have very short kinds of what we call lessons, because we couldn't figure out a term of what else to call it, presentations or whatever, but they're really small. So we'll give you an example. Let's go to not some simple ingredients, Richard. So you'll notice at the very top, there's a little audio that there is there. And Richard created these. Now, this is actually one of the longer ones at 42 seconds, but we'll just play a little bit of it so that you get an idea of what the video or what the auditory example of this is. Go ahead, Richard.
Let me make sure my share screen has the audio checked off. Just a second.
Okay. Now, when you're hearing Richard read this, I want you to think about that clown who is down in the sewer looking out with that smile. The first time I heard this, I just heard it. Richard said he's not going for that. So.
Okay, ready.
Cigarette research is like a health map for figuring out what conclusions will come out of e-cigarette research as scientists study how they impact the health of young people. While cigarettes and e-cigarettes contain and release from heating similar chemicals, some being cancerous, there are new chemicals associated with e-cigarettes that are harmful to your health. Let's learn about some of these new chemicals by looking at one e-cigarette brand, Juul. Their e-liquid ingredient list is provided below. Note, what isn't listed here are all of the chemicals created when the Juul e-liquid is heated. Remember, heating any chemicals creates more chemicals.
So that wasn't quite as clowny, Richard, as some of the other ones are that we've listened to recently in the training. So you'll notice that we've tried to address different kinds of modalities of learning. There's the written that's up there that they can follow along, and then they can also hear it while Richard is reading it as well. And then they go down and they see what the Juul pod ingredients are. There's a little explanation of all of those things. And then we go to the next one, what the science says, what's in a pod. So all of these in terms of lessons are very short, very quick introductions to just give kids basic kinds of material and information. Now, in the open, you could use this, you could go along with them and do it and stop and have conversations if you wanted to do that. There's lots of ways of using this materials, or you can do the linear and just assign it and get feedback in terms of how the kids are doing that. Okay, let's go to another module, Richard.
I just wanted to add real quick that
Good.
What we're basically doing is everything we've gone over in today's workshop with PowerPoint slides and activities, what we're doing is we're putting that into a platform so we can do it remotely. So a lot of the visuals you'll see, you'll recognize, you'll say, oh, I've taught that slide before. But what's really cool is that we can bring them to life now and have these interactive features on them. And before we couldn't so easily pull like screenshots or like PDFs and put them into our curriculum. So that's why we were happy to use this platform to create the course. It's sort of a better way of packaging everything that we offer. Stephen, which learning module did you want to go to?
Pick one.
Okay, let's do what's the damage.
Okay. So we want you to see that what we've done is we've done a little bit of everything here. We give some basic introduction, we give something about chemicals, we do something about health, we do something about marketing. So we want to cover everything in a little bit. So we have here what's happening to the lungs, and now the COVID-19 and vaping. This is really important. Our team has just published a couple of articles in major journals about that connection. And as Richard said, one of the things that we really discussed a lot was, okay, They're not in session. Vaping is kind of a social activity, but they're at home alone. Are they going to vape more now? Are they not going to vape as much? We don't have as much research on this as we would really like to have, but we do have a lot of good research on the COVID-19 and vaping. So Richard, you want to hit that one? We'll just show them what is there for students.
Yeah, and our lab found that there is an association between using e-cigarettes and contracting the virus. That may be due to the fact that someone is putting their hands close to their mouth with the e-cigarette device, or they're actually sharing it with someone, they're taking their mask off when they're ready to use the device. And also we've been finding that the virus can latch to some of the aerosol droplets. So that's something that we're still studying, but it's an important conversation to have with your students about lung health and what that means right now and why it's so important to take care of your lungs. But Stephen, do you want to walk us through this mini lesson?
Yeah. So one of the things that I think is really important in this area, we also have what can be used as a poster tying in COVID-19 with vaping, which I think is very effective with the classroom. I think this one is very good. So students can actually see that there is some science related to this that we have. It's tough to get students to accept factual information from adults, but this one is really strong. So we think this is a good one, and it ties in with what their world is now, what they're dealing with in terms of, I have to stay home, I'm going to school remotely, etc.
The other cool thing about this course is there are activities like the one you'll see here. This is what we call a click and drag activity. So this can test someone's knowledge after they've read or listened to the information. And what's really nice is that they can check their answers once they feel confident in what they've selected. So right here, you'll see I haven't put anything into the actual answer area, and it shows that I received 0 out of the 4 points. But what you can do is retry the activity and see if you are on the right track based on what you covered. And this is just a really great way. So obviously I didn't get any of these right, but you can retry them again. And that's what I love about the course is it gives you